everyone has had a good week so far. I'm just gonna jump right into this video. The last video I left off, the guy I was seeing, we decided to move in together. Before I jump into that, I just wanted to let you guys know that we had been seeing each other before we moved in with each other. I had been dating him for about a year or so, and we came to the decision that we wanted to, find a place together. He had just gotten a night job because he was in college at the time, full time, and then he got a night job. And of course, I'm working full time. And we decided to go ahead and find a place together, which we did. We move in together. And of course, as you all know, when you first move in together with someone that you've never lived with before, you get to know each other. So, of course, it was all good at first. Then, after some time, there was things about him that I did not like, and it was expressed to him as well. And there was things about me that, he didn't like, and he expressed that to me. So, at this point we're trying to coexist together, and it really took a toll, because then me and his relationship, we fought a lot. And when I say fought, it was lots of arguments, and me being who I am, I'm very very headstrong and very dominant. I'm a dominant person by nature. And him being who he is, kind of the same way. So we clashed a lot. But when we got along. Which we did. We're really good friends. It's just that the romantic aspect and trying to, blend that all together, we clashed because when I don't like something, I express it. So I made it known that I didn't like certain things and that I wasn't going to tolerate certain things, and I needed it to change now. And this is something that I'm working on within myself. So I know this about me. And it's something that I'm continuously working on right now, because I do have control issues. I do have jealousy issues. I'm very territorial. I'm very possessive, you might want to say. I expect things to go a certain way, and if they don't, I tend to just, react. And this I do know about myself, and this is what I'm trying to work on, and I'm trying to figure out why I do the things that I do sometimes when it comes to certain things like that in relationships. And I'm very, very hot-tempered, so. And this guy was not, but I did kind of drag him into being that way with me. So my issues with him when we were living together, it was just a lot of things that I expressed that I did not like, but he did. And a lot of the times, we were in our early 20s, 21 and 22, and he was in college. And, guys that age, they're doing what they want to do, and that's basically how his attitude was. Basically, he's gonna do what he's gonna do, and my attitude was like, no, you're not. So that we fought a lot, let's just say. And like I said, him being in college and me being on a different level, really, mentally, because I am a mother. I am a full-time, I'm going to work full-time. I'm trying to take care of me and mine. And he was that he was not there. Let's just say he was mentally. He was going to school, which is what he was supposed to be doing. I'm trying to say like emotionally mature. Just we were on two different pages. So, of course, the fighting escalated. He started doing guy things. Just he would go out with his friends, which I didn't mind. It was when he started trying to come home at like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning that pissed me off. So of course I get angry. That's things that we fought about. Things about, him smoking. I didn't want him to smoke, and that's what he did. But I didn't want that because I was trying to get away from that. From the last experience that I had with the guy that did all that stuff, I was trying to get something different. And I was trying to get something different out of this guy, which, of course, would not happen because that's who he was. This is what he did, and I wanted to stop that. So that's something I had to recognize. Of course, later on I recognized it, not then. But looking back now, that is something I had to recognize. The way I went about things was totally wrong, but I was a yeller, I was a screamer, is what I know. So I fought, and I screamed, and I hit, and I just fought. The fighting got really, really bad, and this incident, which is embarrassing to say, but I got very, very angry, and I remember one day we were fighting and yelling at each other, and I got so angry that I took a knife and I put it to him, and I said, I will cut you. Like, I put it up to him and said I was going to cut him. And he didn't know what to do. I just remember him saying, Tiffany, get the knife away from me. As calmly as he could. And I just remember thinking to myself, like, no, you're going to listen to me. And then I just was like, what am I doing? So I put the knife down. But this is the type of stuff that I'm saying, my mentality here. This is what I had to recognize later on what was wrong. Like this whole thing about me, how I react, what I say, how I do things is not right. And of course I didn't know this until, way later, because I'm young, so I don't know. But this was normal at the time for me. That was normal. And these were the type of fights that we would have. And of course my daughter wasn't at home or wouldn't see any of this, but of course this isn't healthy. And I know that isn't healthy. But it was me thinking, I'm acting this way and doing this because I love you. And that was the way I expressed, look, I'm doing this and I'm acting this way because if I didn't, I wouldn't love you. If I didn't do any of this, it means I don't love you. But I'm doing it because I care and I love you. It's insane to think about. But that is how, I guess, a person that was raised a certain way and treated a certain way take on that mentality of expressing a certain way of love to them. So it's weird to think back and look at, but yes, this is how I acted in my early 20s. I was acting this way in relationships. After a year of that, after the lease was up, we decided to not live together. So we went our separate ways. He went back to college and got a place on campus, and I, got a place back with my sister. And we kind of called it, we took a little break. And So we kind of broke up for a little bit. And it bothered me, but I dove into work. So when I deal with how I deal with stress and stuff that is bothering me, I dive into my work, whatever I'm doing. I take my mind and my focus off of that and put it somewhere else, which is what I did. And that frustrated me because me in my workplace, I'm suffering at home emotionally in my relationships, and then of course it spills into work. So I'm going to work, and the things at home are bothering me, so I'm taking it out at work as well. But at work is work for me. Like, I work my ass off when I go to work. I don't really play when it comes to work. Let's just say that. I know how to do a job, and I know how to do it well. So when I got this job, I started to run circles around everybody at this place. I always worked to get some type of recognition or a title someplace. That's what everybody wants when they go into the corporate world and trying to get into that type of environment. And they want to open doors and they want to climb the ladder, and that's what I wanted to do. And I wasn't being recognized for what I did at this job, and I started to take out on people at my job. Of course, my mother's boyfriend kind of ran the place, and with that type of relationship, I did overstep some boundaries because of the way I spoke in the office. Because I had a personal relationship with this man who ran the office. A lot of people didn't speak to him the way I spoke to him. So I would go into the office and literally let him have it on some days. Because I wasn't either being recognized, or or things weren't being done properly or the way it needed to be done, and I would get on him for that. So in the workplace, I was suffering emotionally, and there was a lot of things going on there, a lot of stressful things that was going on there, and of course, I take that back home. So me being frustrated at work and my non-existent relationship, it was all spilling over into my relationship and my role as a mother. I found myself, being frustrated and screaming at my daughter, and this was, normal. It was natural because it's all I've ever known. I was screamed at, yelled at, and so this is what I passed down, and this is what I found myself doing. Looking back, I get so upset at myself, and I know that I know that it's all a learning experience, because trying to break cycles is a very, very hard thing to do. And looking back, I always say, what I know now, I wish I would have known then. It's very hard. It's so hard to break a cycle that you're so used to doing, and so used to being in the habit of doing, because it's all you've ever learned and all you've ever known. So to actually sit down with yourself and to look at yourself and take accountability for what you do and what you say, it's very, very hard to go day by day to try and not fall into the same cycle when things around you are triggering that. And I found myself, hitting my daughter on several occasions. You guys would say spanking or whatever it is. But after I did those things, I was just like so upset at myself, because I knew I never wanted to be that person. I never wanted to be that woman. And it upset me, and it still does. but I knew that I had to figure out a way to communicate. I needed to figure out a way to not take my anger and frustration and aggression out as physical violence, you know? So I tried every single day, you know, whether it be I just need to go outside, I need to go for a walk, I need to figure it out when I get so emotional like that. So, you know, that's something I struggled with in my early 20s. Being a single mother and being, you know, alone with no help. Because even the people around you do the same thing you do. You know, it's not an issue, it's not a problem for everybody else around you, because the people that you're around are in the same energy and do the same thing you do. So to be able to take yourself energetically out of that energy that you are in, even though you're surrounded by it, it is hard as hell. It really is. Every day is a struggle to not do what you're so accustomed to do. Around this time as well. So my dad had been MIA. Of course, I haven't mentioned him in the previous video. So, you know, after high school, we started to live our own lives, and our dad wasn't so much in the picture too much. He would text us every now and again, and he would call us on several occasions and stuff like that, but we really didn't see him. So around this time, you know, I'm in my early 20s, 21, 22, and my oldest daughter, you know, I think she's around either 4 years old. My dad calls one of my sisters, and out of the blue, and he asks her, does she want to see her little sister? And my sister thinks he's joking, and she's like, stop playing. And he's like, do you want to see your sister? And she's like, really? Are you for real? Do you have a baby? And he's like, yes, he has a baby. So my sister, of course, calls me, and then we call our other sister, and I'm rushing over there in disbelief. Like, my dad does not have another kid, you know? So, you know, I rush over there to my sister's apartment, and lo and behold, my dad shows up at the door, and he has a baby, a 3 months old baby girl. And he comes in, and he says, meet your sister. And I just remember looking at my dad and just, I just was like laughing. I was just like, is this for real? Is this your baby? I looked at him, and I literally said, stop playing. This is somebody else's baby. And he's like, this is my baby. And I'm like, hold on. You have a baby that's 3 months old, and you're just now telling us? And he's just, you know, shaking his head, yeah. And we're like, why didn't you tell us you had a baby or you had somebody pregnant? It was just so weird. And, you know, I look at this baby, and we're holding her, we're picking her, and we just couldn't believe that we have a little sister. And we're all in our 20s, and I'm like, you have a whole baby. My dad has a whole baby, all to himself. It was very, very, you know, crazy. But yeah, so my dad, you know, finally shows back up around, and he has a baby that he's raising. So that was very, very weird experience, but, you know, she's precious. And so to this day, you know, she hasn't really been too much in our lives, but as she was growing up, we did watch her on several occasions. She wanted to come over and play with our kids. And, you know, our kids are her nieces, but they're older than her. And a couple of them are older than her, or her age. And, yeah, because right now she's 18 right now? 19? She's 18 or 19 right now, because I know she's the same age as one of my nieces. So, and she's in college now, so. But anyways, so now my mom has met this other guy that she met while she was she has a job now, because of course she has her own apartment and she's working. And she met a guy through another guy that she works with, actually his son. So the guy that she met, she works with his son. So she met this guy at this time, and of course he's married. So she started seeing this guy, and of course we didn't know until after the fact that he was married. She starts telling us this whole story that, he was married and they were still living together but in separate parts of the house or something like that. But anyway, he ultimately ended up getting a divorce from his wife, and he continued to see my mom. Of course, my mom does the same thing she always does with everybody. She would tell us about his ex-wife all the time. Talk about her and talk about, the children and all that kind of stuff in ways that, shouldn't have been talked about. She started to do the same thing she did with the last boyfriend. She started to try and have us, after she was with him for a while, she started to have us try and call him, dad, or like try to treat him like he was our father. And we were not having that, of course. We told her no, we're calling him by his name, and that's it. She wanted the kids, our kids, to call him grandpa and all this kind of stuff before they were even married, and we're like, no, they're gonna call him by his name. So I'm gonna fast forward a year or so, and actually I fast forward a couple of years. So me and the guy that I had broken off with, we decided to get back together, give it another try. So we get another apartment together, and things are still the same because, of course, nobody has worked on anything. So we're getting back together and kind of doing the same thing. Still arguments going on. I didn't have trust, so I have trust issues. So to be honest with you, I think it got a little bit worse the second time we moved back in. We moved back in with each other, because I was literally on him about everything. Like, I was monitoring everything. Like I said before, I was like checking cell phones and monitoring everything that he did, and that is not a way to live. And at the time, of course, I didn't know any better, but just trying to control everything, when basically I really don't have control of anything. Nobody has control of anyone. So being in that energy was draining, like draining. Every day trying to make sure a person doesn't do what you don't want them to do. It's like, thinking back on it, it's crazy, but that's what I did, and it was kind of worse that second time around. But we struggled through it, and we ended up after that we ended up moving in with his grandmother, because we both wanted to save money, and we had a plan of buying a house or trying to get a house. So we ended up moving in with his grandmother to save some money. And of course, as time went on being there, I think about a year or so being there at his grandmother's house, I ended up getting pregnant. And between this course of time and between me having a child, my first daughter, right now, it was 10 years later. Like, my daughter was about to be 10, and I'm pregnant again. And you know, his family is very old school, which is how it should be. You had to be married to have a baby and all that kind of stuff. So when they found out I was pregnant, that was the first thing they said. When is the wedding? When are you going to get married? And by this time, like I said, fast forward in the previous, I had fast forwarded a lot of years. By this time, me being pregnant and my daughter being almost 10, we had been together for about 7 years, just dating. And so I get pregnant, and his grandmother asked, when are you going to get married? Are you going to get married? And I hadn't really thought about, well, I had, but I hadn't really thought about actually, when are we getting married? It was something that me and him never really, we talked about it, but not like talked about it. When that happened, we decided to go ahead and get married. And so, that's what kind of happened. That's how my marriage kind of ended up being. I was pregnant, and so the thought of marriage was on the table, and it wasn't something that was like romantically done. It wasn't. It was just like, hey, we're pregnant, and the best thing to do is to get married. And to be honest, in my mind, in my viewpoint, I didn't want to have another baby without the father being involved and me being actually with the father. I didn't want that. So I did tell him that. And it was something that he said that he always wanted to do, but, hadn't really given that much thought to it as well. So this is how our marriage came about. And of course, the way he proposed, it was just, it was at the house, and it was me and him and my daughter. My daughter knew about it. And he proposed, and I said yes. And that was that. And then I started wedding planning, and I got married. We got married. My mom and it was her husband at the time. The thing is, when I got married, she didn't tell me that her and her boyfriend had gotten married, because they didn't have a wedding. I actually found out by being nosy. And I went on like the Houston clerk's website, and it's public information. So when I went into the county clerk's website, in the Houston website, I put in the last name. I just started searching people's names, and it would come up saying who they married, what year, and when they filed for the marriage certificate. I was just putting in people's names, and I happened to put in my mom's name. And this is in the midst of me planning my wedding, and it was because I had me and my ex-husband now, we applied for the marriage certificate, and I was going on that website. So when I went on the website, I was putting in people's names, and then I just happened to put in my mom's because I wanted to see if my dad's name would pop up. But when I pulled up her name, the guy that she was seeing pulled up, and it showed that they were married. And I looked, and I was in disbelief. I was like, hold on, my mom got married? And so I remember calling my mom, and she picks up, and I'm like, are you married? And she's like, huh? And I'm like, are you married? And she's like, why are you asking me this? And I'm like, I'm looking at your name on the county clerk website, and it says that you're married on this date. And then she's like laughing about it. Why are you looking at that? And I'm like, because I had to go apply for a marriage certificate, and I'm over here looking at, names. I'm just putting in names. And so she's like, yeah, we got married, but we're going to have the ceremony later. And I'm like, you ain't going to tell nobody that you got married? But anyway, So me and my ex-husband, we get married, and at this time, I was calling my mom because I was going to ask her, you know, of course my mom and her husband pay for the wedding. And so me and my ex-husband, we get married, and my mom, one thing that pissed me off was my mom asked me if I would have her husband walk me down the aisle to give me away. And I'm like, I have a father, and I'm inviting my father, and I want my father to walk me down the aisle and to give me away. And that upset her, because in her eyes, my father was never there, or he didn't do anything for us, all this kind of stuff. And why would I have him walk me down the aisle when she says that her husband has dished out more money and done all this stuff for us that he is deserving to? And I'm like, she will never understand that. Like, I don't care how much money he dishes out because he wants to. He's not my father. My father that I love is going to walk me down the aisle and give me away, regardless of how she feels about it. And I told her this. And so my dad walks me down the aisle, he gives me away, and you know, I get married, and I'm finally a married woman, and I literally am 6 months pregnant by the time I'm walking down the aisle, which you couldn't tell, but I was 6 months pregnant at my wedding. I will end this video here because I think this video is kind of long. So I'll pick up in the next video of a married life, being young and married, and all the things that I went through in my marriage. But thank you guys again for tuning into this video, and I hope you guys have a good rest of the week and weekend, and I will see you guys next week. Sending you all love and light.